I'm going to jump in and kind of talk and give my predictions. I'm really only going to go too deep on most of these. There's some that I might go a little further than too deep, but I really just want to kind of take a look at the depth chart and what we've got for the depth chart. I know I've mentioned some of it already, but let's jump over there, starting on the offensive side of the ball, because I think that's the one that has a lot of ability to be shifted around. Of course, quarterback, John Mateer, it's his position. He is the guy there at quarterback. There's really no debate over that. I am curious to see if they end up working Michael Hawkins in some scenarios. But ultimately, I think the smarter way to do it is to try to save his red shirt. I don't know. Maybe that's not even a concern either. Maybe that's not a concern at all, because you've got Bo Bentley coming in. You're hoping for other depth in recruiting. So, but anyways, when you come down to the quarterback position, it is John Mateer's position. Like I mentioned earlier, the running back position is really all Jaden Knott. Jaden Knott is going to be your lead running back. He's going to be that guy to get you 800 to 1,200 yards. I don't know. It just depends on how often they really rotate these guys out, because I think you're going to see a lot of rotations with Jaden Knott, Javonte Barnes, Taylor Tatum, and Xavier Robinson. The second guy on that list is really going to come down to who's the healthiest. If everyone is healthy, Javonte Barnes, I think, is just going to be that number 2 guy. The way that they used him last season, as often as they put him in over guys like Gavin Sawchuk and even Xavier Robinson last season, or even Taylor Tatum, the way that they used Javonte Barnes last season tells me that DeMarco Murray and company, they all feel confident. Of course, this has been Arbuckle's system now. It's his offense. So maybe there's some changes there. Maybe it's, hey, we recognize that Xavier Robinson had the kind of season that he had at the end of the season last year, and so we want to put him in at number 2. That number 2 spot is open. I'm not saying it's locked in at Javonte Barnes. I just feel like because of the way that this program has treated Javonte Barnes and what he's capable of, he's going to be your number 2 back, I believe. At wide receiver, I'll go ahead and break this down into your X, Y, Z. So your X, if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a while since I've really had to pay attention to playbooks and stuff. So your X and your Z are going to be your guys further, kind of your one-on-one guys out wide. And so, that's where I'm going to use those guys. You're going to have them out wide. Your Y is usually more your slot, your guy that's kind of off the ball, closer inside, almost in that tight end position, which you could actually see the tight end roll out to that kind of Y type player this season in Ben Arbuckle's system. Just throwing that out there. But this wide receiver group, I think, starting off with the X, the guy that's going to be your more one-on-one guy, your one-on-one, that's the guy that you want isolated, your X receiver. Sometimes that switches over to your Z, but most of the time your X receiver is the guy that you want one-on-one isolation. I think that's got to be Giovanni Gibson. That's going to be your guy. If he's healthy, I think Giovanni Gibson. I think Jaden Gibson also gives you that possibility. He could be that guy that you want out there with breakout speed. We do have a lot of fast guys. So, that's one thing that I think, when you look at this wide receiver room, there's a lot of speed in there. So I think Zion Kearney is also your guy. So I'm going to put the number 1 and 2 on that X, that guy that you want out there in isolation. I'm going to put Zion Kearney just because of his speed. I think he's going to be right behind Giovanni Gibson. When you come down to that Y slot, this is where I'm really not sure. I think Deion Burks is your main Y guy, although it would not surprise me to see him also taking over that Z spot, which is your outside guy that's bunched over. So your Y is the guy that's going to be off the line of scrimmage in kind of that slot position. I think Deion Burks is your main guy there for the most part, but I think he also switches out to that Z spot, to that Z wide receiver. So when Deion Burks is in the Y, I think Jaden Gibson is going to be your main guy at that Z. And so that's where I see those guys kind of lining up for the most part. Isaiah Satania, though, that's the guy that I really think is going to, when Deion Burks spreads out wide, I think you're going to get Isaiah Satania in there at that Y spot a lot too. And of course, you've got guys like Jacob Jordan and even Zion Reagans who will be kind of helping out in that slot position quite a bit. And I feel like I might be forgetting somebody there. But that's the guys that I think you're going to see the most of this season in that Y spot, mainly Isaiah Satania and Deion Burks. Now at the Z spot, I think if Jaden Gibson is healthy, I think that's his position. Again, he could also go over to that X and be more isolated. Just kind of depends on the formation. But I think you'll also get Deion Burks. I think that's going to be he's going to be split out wide and inside. He's going to be all over the place, kind of keep people guessing. But then you're also going to have Jaden Gibson. I think that's your main guy out there. I would be very interested to see some of the freshmen that we mentioned a moment ago step in there, but I don't think they're going to be your main go-to guys. You've got Manny Choice. I know that there was a lot of hype around him. I don't think they're going to be the guys that you see very much on the field this season. They're going to hold them off, put them in next season. Now on the offensive line, here's my offensive line starting, I keep on going back, a lot with this offensive line. Left tackle, I'm split between Jacob Sexton and Logan Howland. That's your number 1 and 2, Jacob Sexton and Logan Howland. I think Sexton gets in there in that starting position personally. Then at your left guard, I think you've got Heath Ozeta. Again, Eddie Pierre-Louis, I think he can come in. I think he could possibly take that position. But Heath Ozeta, he has more experience. I think he gets in there at that left guard position. Then you go over to the center position. I think Troy Everett's your starting center. He's the guy that, as long as he's healthy, and from what I'm hearing, sounds like he's doing just fine, and that they're expecting him to be okay. Although I could see Jake Mikula stepping in and possibly taking that spot. Who knows? Because he is kind of healthier. He's a healthier guy. So if something was a question mark with Troy Everett, Jake Mikula is in there. But I think Troy Everett is your starting center. Then you go over to the right guard on the right side of the line. I think you've got Fabechi Wiwu. To me, it just seems like the obvious one. I think Fabechi Wiwu is your starter there, most experienced there. Although, again, EPL might switch over, might get a little bit of reps over there. I'd also expect to possibly see Ryan Foje step in there and get a little bit of repping, just because we've heard his name thrown out there a lot. I could see him getting some reps, and I'm talking reps in the smaller games, the ones that you're blowing somebody out, you're blowing a Temple out of the water, and you can throw him in there. But Ryan Foje, I think UK Dan could be that guy that be your main backup too. So I'll throw him in there. At right tackle, I think you've got Derek Simmons. Derek Simmons, to me, it seems like the sure thing, putting him in there at the starting position at right tackle. He's a huge human being, and I think he has enough experience where I feel confident with him over at right tackle. I think Jake Taylor could get some reps. He's going to be your main backup there. Jumping over to tight end, I really don't know what to believe here. I think Carson is probably your main tight end, but out of being a fan, man, I want to see Caden Helms in there. And I have heard a lot of good things, that he's made a lot of growth this past offseason. I want to see Caden Helms in there. And then, of course, I don't know how much Jaron Kanik gets in there. I really don't. And I think they're going to have specific formations for him. I think he's going to be lined up more like that H-back position. And so anyways, I think mainly you're going to see Carson and Carson Kent and Caden Helms in that tight end position. Going over to the defensive side of the ball, this is, again, one that I feel like you could mix this around any way you want, and you're probably going to be just fine. But that defensive end position on one side of the ball, I think you're going to have R. Mason Thomas, Danny Okoye kind of swapping in and out over there. I think the other side of the defensive end, you're going to have Marvin Jones and PJ, although Taylor Wine is going to get some good reps. Okay, I'm not leaving him out. I think Taylor Wine is going to get some very solid, some very meaningful reps. But I think PJ, from what I've heard, I think PJ is the other guy. So I think Marvin Jones gets your starting position, and then I think PJ is right behind him, splitting reps with Taylor Wine. Then on that defensive front, that defensive tackle, that interior, I think you got Dominic Williams and Jaden Jackson are your main two guys right there in that nose tackle, D tackle kind of positions there. And then you've got David Stone, Grayson Halton as their backups, being able to transition and come in there quite a bit, and get plenty of playing time. I think you're going to see a lot between all four of those guys. Going over to the linebacker room, I think you're mainly going to see Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie as your Will and your Mike. Of course, Kip being that Will on the weak side, and then so you're and then I think to back him up would be Kendall Daniels with Kip Lewis, Kendall Daniels. Although I can see Kendall Daniels also splitting out and getting a little bit of playing time out at that cheetah position. I'm curious to see if he does get any. But then, yeah, anyways, that's what I'm going to see there in your linebacker room. I guess I forgot Sammy also, kind of probably more in that Mike. I think he's been getting a lot of reps in that Mike linebacker spot. And so that's probably where you're going to see Sammy Omosigho. Going over to that cheetah position, obviously that's Kendall Dolby's position. That's like the position created for him, basically, is like the way that I feel. Like that he is the definition of the cheetah linebacker / safety kind of guy. He can play. He's athletic enough to play corner, and absolutely he probably will get some reps out at corner. But anyways, you got Kendall Dolby. And I'm interested to see how much you see out there. If I think you're going to see Reggie Powers come in a little bit at Cheetah as well. With as many guys as you've got over on that defensive side of the ball, with that linebacker capability, that linebacker speedy, athletic linebacker build, I have a feeling like you're going to. I've heard some that you're going to hear Reggie Powers as well, but I think Sammy Omosigho is another guy that you're going to see kind of come in at that Cheetah role as well. Then going over to the cornerback position, I think with your corners, you're going to have Eli Gentry. As long as they're healthy, those are your two main guys. And then the backups, you're going to get Jacoby Johnson and Cortland Guillory. I think that's your main cornerback room. Like I mentioned before, Kendall Dolby might have to jump over and play a little bit of corner this season if we have any kind of injury concerns out there, or maybe even just to get some reps out there. So that's going to be your cornerback room, in my opinion. Again, all of this is just me kind of taking stabs in the dark and what I believe will be there. Going over to your strong safety room, I'll start off with the strong safety. Peyton Bowen, obviously your lock-in, your shoe-in there, and then Jaden Hardy right behind him. And then I think for your free safety, you're going to get RSJ, you're going to get Robert Spears-Jennings with Michael Boganovsky kind of stepping in back up to him. And I think Michael Boganovsky has the ability to have the type of year that Robert Spears-Jennings had last season, where he had a really good season. You just didn't hear a whole lot about him because it was mainly all about Billy Bowman and Peyton Bowen. That's what you heard a lot about. But Robert Spears-Jennings had a very good season last year. I think he's going to have a breakout season this year, but I think you're also going to have Michael Boganovsky come in there and make his name known. He's a heat-seeking missile, man. I'm excited about him. I'm very excited to see more of him.